Pilar, welcome back to the pod, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
I'm like so pumped that you wanted to have this conversation on my podcast because I'm like, holy moly, this needs to be had, very much so. So before we even like kind of dive into obviously all the juicy layers that we're going to go, why this conversation, why now around religion, fundamentalist Christianity, the new age, kind of this pendulum swing that we're watching and witnessing happen online right now? Why now?
I feel like with what's going on with consciousness right now, veils are being removed through all dimensions, and a lot of people are seeing where they were indoctrinated or where they bought into things that actually did not resonate with their soul, or where core wounding and trauma diluted their ability to see and to know and to feel what's true for them. And obviously this extends through so many things that we see going on in reality right now. But one of the biggest places, one of the biggest energy harvesting systems in place is in regards to how we give our power away to what we think a greater power is, or what we think will connect us to the divine.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is so true. It's exactly what we're witnessing happening in reality, not even just around like religion, spirituality, but around politics and around groupthink and around where we belong and who we are and identities and labels, and all of these things are really getting shaken up, and we're really having to have these difficult, challenging conversations with ourselves first and foremost of, wait a second, who am I when I remove this veil? I personally feel like even my third eye just went like pow, and like blasted wide open, and I'm like, holy fuck, what's going on? And I'm freaking out, and it's just starting to recognize like, wait, who actually am I at my core? And then what is it that I believe? What is resonating as truth in my own body when I unplug and unhook from all of these systems and these things and these labels that, like you said, I was indoctrinated with, for some of us very early on. And even those of us who have been in the coaching industry for a while, the personal development game for a while, what we've taken on from even other leaders or programs or books or belief systems. And it's all kind of getting shaken up where it's like, wait a second, what actually remains true and what actually is resonating with me on like a cellular level? And so, yeah, we're watching a lot of this happen with clients, within ourselves, within, leaders, within so much of what's going on right now. So we have notes of where we want to go here. Where do you feel we even begin this conversation?
So this is coming through super strong. And one of my spiritual teachers always brings this up. And she calls them like the original programs. So you can go back to the first civilizations, Atlantis, Lemuria, and that is when human consciousness, or just consciousness itself, or maybe, it probably already was happening above at the same time too, but you can go back to the origins, like the galactic origins, and consciousness was implanted with these two programs, and they're kind of one and the same. And you can see how everything that's going on right now is a drip down from those in a way. The programs are, one, the universe is hierarchical. So the idea that things we connect to, like angels, guides, ascended masters, all these other things, are actually above us, and there's a hierarchy within the universe. That's the first one. And the second one is, oh my God, I totally just lost it.
Oh my God, I hate when that happens.
I totally just lost it. The second one is that God is something that must be connected to outside of you.
Yes.
The second one. God is only something you can connect to externally. So I just took us back like super far, but you can see how those two programs, they've been running through thousands, millions of years in human consciousness. And we're at this time right now where this has always been available, I believe, but it's like available to where our consciousness can perceive it now, where we can actually opt out of those programs.
Amen.
Like, it's done. We can collapse them. You don't have to if you don't want to. You can stay in them. But in this moment in time, it's available to actually be like, I'm done in these programs and I'm going to exist over here now.
Yes. Oh my God. I love that. It's so true. And that makes so much sense because we witnessed this happen a lot. Like, so for those listening, if you're new here, you don't know my story, I grew up in a very like fundamentalist Christian home very early on, was indoctrinated with the things that like, this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. God is a man in the sky. And you must give your life over to him and he must save you and you must repent of your sins. And then one day, you know, when you pass on, whether it's in the rapture and the apocalypse happens and you're taken up, you know, to the sky, you have to answer for all of your sins at the pearly gates and then he'll let you in. And then you get to like live there forever. And it was like, and it's everything you could ever imagine. And it's like this beautiful picture painted. So as a very young child, I still have trauma that I'll think of and that I'll have triggered in certain instances where I remember being like 6 years old, crying myself to sleep, sobbing, thinking that like, did he hear me though? Does he know that I want him to save me? You know, what if my family gets taken and I'm left behind? Like all these things. I watched like the Left Behind movies and the books very, very young, like never, ever, ever should children be watching those. And I watched all this happen and it completely hijacked my nervous system, my beliefs, and I could not even think for myself anymore. Curiosity was frowned upon. You know, there's obviously the purity culture stuff and all of these pieces went so far deep, but the most traumatizing for me was the disconnection from myself and the constant fear mongering. So I believed those, you know, pieces, those programs of God is outside of me, right? Someone always has more power than me. Someone always knows what's right for me. Someone else has to validate me. You know, I have to do this in order to belong. I must forego my own sovereignty and my own agency. These different pieces. And then the hierarchy, right? It's like the pastor, and then he's got deeper access to God, and then I'm somewhere down here, and the parents know more. And so I need to, again, forego my own ideology to then fit in with them and make sure that, you know, it's like this whole system. And then that was my karmic loop where even after exiting Christianity and having kind of a wake-up call in my early 20s, then I found this sense of, I found this in spiritual communities where they preached and taught that, you know, this is freedom and peace and liberation and you know, sovereignty. But once I was in there, it was the exact same shit. There was a hierarchy. Someone always knew more than me. My power wasn't within me. God, angels, whoever was outside of me, you know, I had to ask permission for certain things. And it was this pattern on loop. So it really doesn't matter whether it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, you know, whatever religion you ascribe to. And then you've got all these different spiritual systems of this one's the best and this is the only way and you have to do this for this. They really do all come back to what you just said, those same two pieces, and then obviously build on from there. So can you give the audience, for those who are new to you, Pilar, a little bit of a background of like how you grew up in all of this?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Let me see what pieces are important because there's a lot.
Right.
My quote, saving grace in regards to understanding that there was more to reality than what meets the eye was actually my mom dying when I was 2. That was like a huge, and I call that my first initiation. I started connecting with her in the spirit world very quickly. And whenever people ask me, they're like, when did you wake up? Like I think back to being like 2 or 3 and recognizing she's not in the physical, but I can connect to her.
Wow.
That it's not that I wasn't indoctrinated. It's not that I didn't give my power away. It's not that there wasn't distortion, but that never left me. That awareness of like, there is so much more going on than what people are talking about, than what Catholicism is talking about, So that really, really helped me. And that is what sort of stayed with me as I went through many, many years of Catholic school and would sort of question, like, I'm feeling the presence of the divine, and at the same time, I'm feeling the way it's so distorted and the way we're putting all these constrictions and boundaries around the divine. I had a lot of God wounds from many years of Catholic school, like a lot. I had a lot of healing to do with God and with myself in my 20s. When I see, it's funny because I feel like this all goes back in a lot of ways to my mom. Something has always come in and grabbed me before I went into something laced with distortion. Always.
Wow.
When I was a teenager and I was getting into aliens and like transcendental meditation and like just like really getting back into all of the esoteric stuff that I know I've worked with for lifetimes, when I started to go towards an area that like let's call it like a new age area that was hijacked, something always grabbed me, always. And that's been true my whole life. Like something has always come up and been like, no, you don't need to do that. You don't need to go there. You don't need to sit in this ceremony. You don't need to do this thing. You don't need to work with this person, like pull back. Wow. And every time I get that, let's call it like hit or like that awareness of this isn't for me, another veil removes and I see more of what's going on. And I see this in New Age and I see this in religion. So ultimately, and this kind of ties it all together, the piece, one of the core teachings in all religions worldwide, but when I say religions, I don't mean what they've become, I mean what they were. When they were married to mysticism, when religion and mysticism were not separate. If you go into any ancient mystic tradition, this includes Gnostic Christianity. One of the core teachings is the words we are giving you and the teachings and these frameworks, they mean absolutely nothing unless you have had like the purpose of all of this is for you to have a direct experience of the divine that you will not be able to explain, that no one will be able to take from you, and that will like forever open the doors of your heart to something greater that exists within you and outside of you simultaneously. So that experience I had when I was little, that was my first direct experience. God. So it's like I got that and that was super helpful because of that, I carried that in my heart. I was always able to carry that in my heart.
Damn. Sign me up for that next time around. Okay. Like, did the guides get that? Because that's powerful. And I love what you said of when like religion and mysticism played together, because it has become, these opposite sides now. And it's become this very, unfortunately, taboo topic where like it literally is like two sides of a spectrum instead of this continuum where they're actually playing really beautifully together. And I hadn't even heard of the Gnostic Gospels until even just like a year ago when I read Mary Magdalene Revealed, and I was like, holy shit, like, of course. And that's why it was funny. I was on a podcast recently with these two guys of Ideas Digest, and they're all about the nuance and like picking things apart. And so they asked me, do I identify as a Christian? And I said, I no longer do. And they said, do you identify as a witch? I said, I don't. And then they started like pulling pieces of my story back, and they're like, but a lot of what you're saying does tie back to Christianity. I said, sure, Christianity in its original form, but not what it's become in the last, couple thousand years. Like there are aspects, but I said, then it could go down a whole thing of like, I don't really believe in labels and whatever, and like needing to be a part of something to feel validated in that. It's just, there's pieces of maybe, certain aspects of mysticism, certain pieces of religion that I find within my own body. I found my own connection with my own relationship with as I did my deconstruction, as I healed my religious trauma. And I found that world where these two do play so beautifully together. And I always joke, like if Jesus came back to live now and walked the earth, like I really do think he'd probably be smoking pot. He'd be chilling with everyone, like playing with his crystals, like out in the friggin' fields, just like hanging out, having a good time, having these different miracles happen. And like we're watching it happen, but we're almost blind to it because we've been made to believe that it's wrong. Mm-hmm. So let's talk more about this. I mean, maybe we even go into, in your kind of ideals, what is the new age? Because I think that's also kind of a taboo, very like overused term now where everything's just new age.
Okay. Yes. I love this question. Okay. This is super important. Like everyone who listens to this, remember this, and any new age thing you interact with, remember this framework. Remember like what this is.
I feel like I'm going to school. I'm really excited. Okay, I've got my pen and paper. I'm ready.
This is like one of those frameworks that really protected me, shielded me. So new age, actually, like the term came about in the 60s and 70s during like the psychedelic revolution. And it was just a term that they started using for the resurgence of a connection to spirit, of a multidimensional connection, or of a connection to the unseen. Mm-hmm. Now, what's happened, and I'll get into that. What's happened when you look at where New Age sort of hangs out, like what's really going on in those bubbles, is that everything that fits into New Age is just an extraction of an ancient teaching. Mm. So it's almost like you have these ancient teachings, and New Age, the entity, comes in, picks one aspect of them, and brings it over here. And what happens when you only get one aspect of a teaching? The teaching becomes very distorted and very manipulated. It's like the law of attraction. That is one teaching within an entire set of teachings brought forward by the Essenes, which is what Jesus was. He was an Essene. So like when you start to see what's going on, you see how there's these extractions. People are opting into them, and it's not good. Why is it not good? Okay, so in the higher realms, like when you look at what's going on with light and dark energy, let's just say dark energy as like an umbrella term, because we're not going to go into like every aspect of that. When consciousness starts paying a lot of attention to something, that energy field is like, oh, look at all of the people giving their energy to this thing.
Right.
What happens? That energy like recognizes this is very easily manipulated, and this is a really easy place to come in and start harvesting, hijacking, and using people's life force.
Oh, how we're witnessing this play out in real time right now. Yes.
Yes. So, of course, it's super easy to hijack a surface level extraction of a teaching. Of course. Why wouldn't it be? Like, it's not the whole thing, and people are opting into something that they don't even truly understand. Mm-hmm. So all of these aspects of New Age spirituality, if you're going into them, it's basically like going into a room where a bunch of darkness is waiting for you to give your power away. Mm-hmm. Waiting. And what happens when most people interact with this stuff is before they're even in the door, they've already given their power away. Mm-hmm. So what is the antidote to this? There's a couple. The two I recommend are, if you're going to interact with any spiritual teaching, specifically like ones where you're going to open up your energy field, or you're going to cast a spell, or you're going to do something through multiple realms, you better make sure you know where it's coming from, you know how it was used, and you know the whole story. Otherwise, you're playing with fire. You're just playing with fire. It's like giving like a kindergartner like a high level teaching and being like, here, go play with this. That's one antidote. The other, and you can do these simultaneously, is if you're going to interact with a teaching, a new age teaching, a new age concept, a new age tool, you better make sure before you go into it, you have stepped back and you have checked in with your own channel and whether this is necessary and whether this is going to be beneficial for you.
Yep.
And whether this is in like your highest good. And that can be really difficult because people are interacting with these teachings from a place of wounding, of I need to be pure, I need to be good for God, I need to be worthy, this is going to make me more light, this is going to make me be like more in service. So there's already distortion coming in. When people start getting hooked into all these different pockets of new age, oftentimes what happens, and this is what we're seeing, there comes a point where a veil gets removed, somebody comes in and says something, or they just have an experience of recognizing something weird is happening with their energy. And then it's like full blown, like, what is going on? What did I just plug into? It's like they see the darkness. They see the darkness that's present. And then new age gets, these teachings get written off as just being hijacked by darkness, when again, if you go back to all the original teachings, that isn't going to happen. That's not going to happen to you when you interact with them, because you're well aware of what you're interacting with. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Oh my God, I love this so much. And I'm thinking of all the times in my life that I've done this and all the ways I'm watching this happen online and in the world right now. Very, very prevalent, very, very real in current times. I'm curious for those that are like, okay, because you, Pilar, I mean, you've always had such a strong, very palpable connection to yourself and to this feeling of this is dark, this doesn't feel good, or this is hijacked, this is distorted. For someone who's maybe new to this, what does it feel like to be like, oh shit, something is off here? If they've maybe, and obviously it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. This is why you need to get to know your body's cues. But are there ways that we can even walk them through a little bit from your point of view of, okay, how do I know that this has been hijacked? How do I know that this isn't really even too like safe for me? Because I think what we're watching happen a lot right now too is people don't have a safe and secure foundation within themselves, and so they're finding it in these leaders and these teachings and these ideologies. So they're plugging into it, again foregoing their own sovereignty to then plug into that and be held by these people. But then what happens when that leader changes their mind or pieces out on them or doesn't give them what they need? They're completely left in a trauma response of, oh fuck, I've just been abandoned and now I really don't feel safe. So finding that safety within themselves. But how do we know what hijacking feels like? How do we know what it looks like?
Okay, this is a really good question. I don't know if this is necessarily what I would call the root, but at very close to the root of this is almost it's like a non-negotiable to remember yourself as a divine sovereign being. That sovereignty is your birthright. Like that is super important. And starting to invoke that and remember that, then you can start moving through those processes of seeing where, and this is like almost always the case, core wounding, trauma, not enoughness, all the stuff we pick up when we're in amnesia are the very things, those are the very places in your energy field where you're giving consent for these things to come in and hijack. You cannot be hijacked unless consent is given, but you have to get really nuanced in how you look at giving consent, because you can give consent through simply feeling like, I need this teaching to be whole. I need to do this plant medicine ceremony to connect to God. Sorry, your kitty. Oh, hi. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I know they're so cute.
Oh my God. Okay, we'll talk about that after. Sorry.
So this again, this ties into what I was saying before. When you are operating from the idea that God, spirit, worthiness, and perfection and all these things are something to be attained and exist outside of you, that's consent. That's giving consent. So you can start really dramatic and just look back and see, like, I learned in childhood that I wasn't worthy as just for existing. And ever since then, I've been on this journey trying to find worthiness outside of me. That's consent. That's giving consent to something to come in and work on your energy, hijack, harvest, whatever. Then it gets very nuanced. Like, it can get very, very subtle. Like, perhaps you've worked out and healed a lot of your core wounding, but you still have this need to be seen as spiritual because your business depends on it. That is still a wound. That is still giving consent. The person who needs to be seen as spiritual is going to do things just to look spiritual.
100%.
Not because they're actually meant for them or because it's a true calling to work with that thing. So, like, hijacking is one of those words where people freak out, and it's like, just the word hijacking makes you want to go into victim consciousness, and that's another trap. Like, you're not a victim to being hijacked. That's why I said the baseline is, like, remember you're a divine sovereign being. I say it every day. I say it in the car. I say it when I wake up. I'm constantly invoking that, because just invoking that is going to start moving energy in your field for you to see where you're not actually embodying that.
Absolutely. Well, and here's the thing with that. So what's interesting, because coming from like a very Christian background, the idea of being hijacked used to trigger the hell out of me, where I would just avoid anything that I was feeling called to because I was so afraid. Like, I literally would just, my whole body would shut down, because in Christianity, you learn that you can get possessed. You'll see people having like exorcisms, and it's like all of this stuff. And it's like, oh, the devil will get you. Like, again, notice how, and this isn't all versions of Christianity. I know beautiful Christians that don't believe these things. So take what you want from this conversation, leave the rest. That's the one disclaimer I'm going to give you. I'm not trying to tell you what to believe, just what to look at. But for me, it was this idea, like, everything, when I could pull out of it and look at where I had grown up and kind of the different beliefs and the different things that I had learned, all of them were rooted in fear. And so fear fed and created and attracted more fear. And so when I would lay in bed at night, as I started to explore spirituality and kind of outside of the Christian, doctrine that I had grown up in, I was just dripping in fear of, like, oh my God, what if this happens? And what if this? And what if this? And I was 100% forgetting that, like you said, I am a divine sovereign being. I'm running the show. Nothing has access to me unless I give it access. Like, I have chills on my whole body. And I would literally, like, say different mantras, different prayers, like, literally, like, get the fuck out. If you are not of the light, you don't have jurisdiction here. Like, really and truly, like, it takes you starting to embody this power, this sovereignty, this ideal that you call the shots. Like, nothing has access to you unless you, like you said, unless you give it consent, even energetically. So if you're constantly, like, shivering in fear, that's a very clear indication you need to work on that and do some healing there, because all you're doing is attracting more of it. They love that. The darkness loves it. It's like, yes, here's an open door. Let's go in. Versus, really embodying the beliefs that love is always more powerful than fear, right? The light is always more powerful than the dark. Nothing has access to me unless I give it access. Am I, staying true to clearing things out, to grounding myself, to protecting myself, like these different pieces. And again, not to check it off your spiritual to-do list that you did it for the day, but because what really brings you back into your own energy and your own self-containment, so that nothing can poke in there, because you're like, nope, like, I'm good. Like, I'm protected. I'm safe. I'm in my own body, and I can trust that. So I think it's so important to remember it's going to feel different, that whole hijacked feeling, or like something isn't right here. This is why you have to, for me, it was like kind of taking a pause. Like, let me take a beat before I sign up for this thing. Or I remember hearing this, like, very well-known shaman. Everyone's obsessed with him. And I kid you not, the first time I heard him on a podcast, my whole body was like like my whole body was like cringing and I was like, what the hell? But I kept trying to listen to it because I was like, no, but you know, so-and-so loves him and so-and-so loves him. He's super successful and he has all these followers. And, you know, it sounds really good what he's saying, but my body and my energy was straight up like, hell no, get out of here. And eventually I listened to that. And then I would have conversations with other people that were like, oh, I feel that too. And I'm like, oh, thank God. And then I had a friend who had an experience with him and she was completely traumatized. Like it was this whole thing. My body was telling me, but my mind and my ego, my very like 3D form were like, no, you know, go fit in with this group and like everyone loves him. So if we take that beat and we learn to trust those little nigglings, you'll actually start to see very clearly, this is for me, this is not for me, this is safe, this is not safe, this is hijacked, this is pure, and you're able to start. And here's the thing too, I feel like I'm off on a tangent, I'm sorry. Another thing I had to remember was that it's all perfect timing. So I remember when I started to wake up to this and was like, well, now I need someone to tell me, is this person safe or are they not safe? Is this okay or not? I had to recognize if I'm meant to work with that person and maybe they're hijacked or maybe something's off, it's part of the plan and I'll figure it out and I'll wake up when I'm ready and I'll be able to heal it and clear it and I'll be totally fine. I'm safe because I'm within myself and I've got me and it's okay and I can trust that versus living again back into that fear of getting hooked into that and then trying to make every decision through a fear lens and not being able to hear myself clearly. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. When a veil gets ripped off, the first stage is usually fear and then going even deeper into a victim template.
Yes. Yep.
And the awareness stage is super important. Like people need to see, but you can't hang out there. If you're in victim, this was a huge up level for me when I stopped being at war with darkness. Because being in that war was still me giving my power to it and still me in victim mode. And when I started just looking at darkness as like, meh, like not hanging out with you, but this is where it becomes super important to cultivate, like, okay, this came up while you're talking. Let me back up a little. A big issue in both Christianity, and fundamentalist Christianity, and the New Age realm, is we have a bunch of people who haven't actually done that much integration work, trying to play with wands and shit. Like, it's like you should not be touching this yet. But there's no restrictions. It is not like in ancient times when you actually had to be at a certain level of consciousness to begin receiving the teachings.
So true.
So it's a free-for-all. So I always tell people, oh, your discernment level, like, needs to be at an all-time high in spiritual communities because there is far more shit going on there than in Muggle world. Because in Muggle world, you see it. You're like, that's weird, I see it. In spiritual realms, you're like, that looks, they're saying it's light, but it's like, I tell people, like, you have to be at a certain level of consciousness to interact with this stuff in a really sovereign way. And like you said, even if you're not, you're going to get the lessons your soul wanted. But knowing that is super important. And when you're at that level, when you get to a certain place on, let's just say, your integration journey or your healing journey, you can really start to discern the nuances between I'm feeling triggered or charged because it's hooking into my own shadow versus I'm actually neutral and can neutrally feel something is off there. And like, and maybe you feel the charge, maybe you go in, maybe you recognize where it was hooked into, you get it out, and then you look at it again and you're like, yep, something's off. Like, these are all like the subtleties of energy work and how you run your energy that are of extreme benefit when you're going to be interacting with people who are playing with energy or power that perhaps they shouldn't be or weren't initiated into.
Beautifully said. Oh my God, it's so true. I'm literally picturing us all like at a Harry Potter birthday party at like 6 years old with wands, like, and we're trying to like lead people in this shit and like, like that stuff. I mean, words are powerful, energy is powerful, spells are power, like all of this stuff is so real and it's powerful. So again, not to be hooked into fear of like, oh, I can't touch that, but like Pilar is saying, make sure you have this certain level of consciousness. And well, how do I know? No one can tell you. You will know in your own body what you're ready to play with and what you're not. Like, for example, too, like a very real example, even recently, I can't get down with Kundalini yoga. I can't do it. I don't know why. A lot of people I know are obsessed with it and they swear it's the key to abundance. Here's the hard part I have when people swear that something's the key to abundance, because in my body, personally, something doesn't feel right for me when I try it. I've tried it a few times and every time I'm like, God, something feels off here. But I'm looking and I'm like, but they make so much money and look at that. Oh my God, but that's a leader. And then I'm like, no, unhook from that. Like Pilar said, I am a divine sovereign being. This doesn't feel good in my body. My discernment is saying nope. And I can trust that. And guess what?
You need.
I can still be abundant. Like you have to change these thoughts and these stories in your head that are making you think you need like a certain kind of crystal to be successful. You don't. Every single person is going to have different tools, different connections, different paths with all of this. And you have to trust your own discernment in it. You have to. Every time.
This is the original program. This is so tools are funny because they're tools.
Right.
and it's not black and white, but there is definitely a mature way to interact with tools, just like teachings, and an immature way. And the very classic immature way is starting to believe that tool is getting you something that you couldn't get without it.
Yes.
Versus simply being something that shows up for the level of consciousness you're at to illuminate, magnify, open, heal, shift, whatever. But we, just like with this original program, we start to put our power in the tool. I always say, like in a video game, like on one level of the game, you might have like a sword, or you might have like a bag of like herbs or something. And then you get up to the next level and you have a whole new set of tools because you don't need the same tools from the level before. You're dealing with a whole new level of the game.
Right. I love this. And that's exactly it. And that's just 100%. It goes back to, there's a lot of this idea of we're giving our power away. And so again, when that leader or that, thing changes. So let's go this way then. Let's talk about what's going on online right now, where there seems to be a lot of people going from New Age. Because here's the thing. A lot of us watch people go from Christianity or some sort of fundamentalism to a New Age, more spiritual approach, playing over here with like energy. And it's much more like big and broad. Okay. Now we're watching happen in recent years, people go from New Age spirituality teachings over to not just, Christianity, fundamentalist, I'm right, you're wrong, you're going to go to hell, Jesus is saving me, that type of ideal. What's happening here that you're seeing?
Okay, so first, let's lay the groundwork. These are the same templates in different outfits.
Totally.
Same thing. Earlier when I was talking about the way these extractions have been hijacked, that's the same thing in fundamentalist Christianity. There's a whole set of teachings that did not make it into the Bible. There are practices that did not make it into the Bible. There are people that did not make it into the Bible. Like we know, most of us know this at this point, but the really important piece is to go see what those teachings are. Like that's super important. So fundamentalist Christianity is an extraction of the Gnostic teachings, the Essenes teachings, Yeshua's teachings, New Age is an extraction of those same teachings and teachings from around the globe. New Age picks from everywhere. It picks from Sufism. It picks from Buddhism. Like it's just the whole.
Like a buffet, like a Chinese buffet. Everything for $12.99. All you can eat. Usually you get sick after that. I'm not going to lie. So be careful.
So when people, like we sort of already unpacked, when you're giving your energy to all these different things in the new age, through plant medicine, through meditations, through this, through that, through this teacher, this healer, this thing, opening up my energy field 6 times a day, like there usually comes a point for some people where a veil gets removed, they start to see all the darkness, they freak out. Okay, so this is actually like what I'm going to share. This is purely something that came through my channel, and take it or leave it. It was a super fun experience to have. So I was sitting with, because as I'm sure you know, many people channel Yeshua or Jesus. Many, many people channel him because he's still trying to teach. And so much of what he brought was distorted, like so much. So
I just always picture him rolling his eyes, but I know that he's like, you know, I literally am like,
yes.
like really like a hand on the face, like really guys,
yes.
like God.
Yes. So I was asking why out of all the ascended masters and all the people that could show up, why does Jesus appear to the people who are starting to eject from New Age and are in complete fear and complete just like, what have I done? I was like, why is it him? And I got this message that it sort of came through like, well, I'm the perfect person to show up for them because I know exactly how it feels to have all of my teachings extracted and distorted. And I know exactly what that does to people. Like, wow. I am, of course, the one who would be there because this whole template, like that it makes perfect sense to me. This is what happened with my teachings. And in the Western mind, he has been painted as the thing that saves. So of course he's like the safest person to appear. The message I got was when he appears to them, what he's actually wanting to invoke is the teaching of Christ consciousness, which of course was removed from the Bible. In the Bible, the verse I hear all the time, I am the way, the truth, and the light. The only way into the kingdom of heaven and into the Father is through me. So people take that in fundamentalist Christianity and are like, the only way into heaven is through the teachings in the Bible, worshiping Jesus, worshiping God, and that's it. That teaching, when you decode it, is him saying, through me, through the teaching of Christ consciousness, which was taken out of the Bible on purpose. Through me, because I'm the living embodiment of showing what it means to live with God inside of you as the doorway to the divine. So my theory, and this is not from my mind, this just like came through, is that when he shows up, he's like, okay, this is the perfect time to give them an experience of Christ consciousness and help them start to get their power back. Like, I'm going to show up for them. And I think some people have this experience and they do start to get their power back because they understand what's being transmitted. I think for a lot of people, for a lot of souls, because they're in such deep fear, shame, and confusion, when they see him, it's, oh, you're it. Pendulum swing into Christianity where there's boundaries, there's right and wrong, there's yes and no, there's black and white, and it's just follow this, and this is it.
Like, here's the rules. Yep.
It's a pendulum swing from extraction to extraction. And like you said, I imagine Jesus just like, okay, just like that's fine. Like, that's okay. I'll try again in the future. At least you feel a little bit better. You know what I mean? It's like at that level of fear,
right?
That's all that can be handled. And where I don't want to say where I become concerned, but where I want to sort of just expand the sight is, if you're going to swing, don't repeat what you did in New Age where you just buy into extractions. Because if you actually go in to the roots of the Essene teachings and Yeshua's teachings, you open the whole universe. Like, it's all there. And you can liberate yourself again from another thing that's put chains over you. Like it doesn't matter the door. You can do this through any religion, but when you go in, it's all there. Everything you were looking for in New Age probably is in there. That's what I see. And then I think that because people swing, they see him and they go into, I'm getting saved. I'm getting saved is still a victim savior template. It's still giving power to something that is not you, or does not source reflect as a reflection of you, or God reflecting as you. So there's a victim template, and then there's a desire to save other people. And whenever there's a desire to save other people, that's also, there's a trap there. This person is operating within a distorted template. Because when you have truly been liberated, you know your job is not to go out and liberate everyone else. It's to be the living embodiment of liberation, just like Jesus did. Jesus did not try to save anyone. He just showed up and said, this is possible for all of you.
Pilar for president. I am like, yes, like the whole time you're talking. And that's, for me, like a good place to start with. I mean, a very easy place to start with, like looking into a lot of the roots of Christianity for me was Mary Magdalene Revealed by Megan Watterson, just because she's a historian and she kind of dives into all of it, but in very like digestible ways to kind of give you like whet your palate of sorts of like, holy shit. And that for me, I mean, when I left Christianity, I had a whole like F you attitude. You know, I kind of swung to the opposite of like, they're wrong, I'm right, doing the same thing. And then I had to heal my religious trauma, heal my relationship with what Christianity was taught to me as, and recognize what it really was at the root of it and at the foundation of it. And then like I said in that podcast, like I have many ideals that do line up a lot with what some Christians believe. We just have different views on like the afterlife and all of that. And this whole saviorism thing, the victim template like you're talking about. So this is so powerful. And I see it too. I love it. I love that you channeled him and that's like what you were getting. When I look at it from like a trauma lens, I see it as a trauma bond, because what's happening is that in Western culture, we have, it's like this big, it's like Santa Claus, right? Like this big, warm, loving Jesus and all the children at his feet. And like, he's hugging them. And especially people possibly with, like you said, the God wounds, the father wounds, we've got this relationship with the masculine that feels so safe. It's like, oh, thank God I can relax in this man's arms. He's got me. I can just completely surrender and it's all good. Right. And I don't have to do anything now. And I don't have to do, go anywhere except for, save people and tell people that they're wrong. But that's like a whole different thing. But I just get to like be in this man's arms and everything's going to be okay. And daddy's going to make it all better type of energy. Versus when you heal your trauma and you heal these father wounds and this relationship with the masculine, you recognize the masculine within you, God within you has you. That's your safety. That's your anchor. And like you were saying, God is both within you and outside of you simultaneously. And it's like this beautiful liberation within that, that I really want for people. You have to heal that trauma piece, or all you're doing everywhere with different leaders, whether it's God or someone on Instagram, they are saving you. They are your safety. They are your validation. And that's just going to leave you in this constant loop of wanting more and needing more and grasping, versus waking up to, holy shit, it's all been within me this entire time. How empowering is that? Set yourself free.
Amen.
Olivia the pastor. The what do you call it? The 12th house Stellium sermon.
Yeah.
Here we are. Welcome.
Well, that's actually like a cool thing to say here is you and I, both of our souls in this lifetime really wanted to have we wanted to come in as mystics. Not as like devotees of a religion, not as like I'm just this, not as fundamentalist this. There was this really strong desire to experience life as a mystic, and there's so many definitions of what that is, but the one I resonate the most with is the mystic's journey is continuously emptying yourself, throwing all of yourself into the fire so that the divine can fill you, so that you can see what is truly divine. It's just a continuous emptying and recognizing like, I have picked up falsities and I'm going to let them go. And I think when you have that signature and when you're here to unlock those codes, it's very natural for you to start to, I don't want to say float up, but start to see, like, from above, all religions are leading to the same thing. All teachings are leading to the same thing. These are all just the same teaching in a different outfit, the same energetic in a different house, and begin to recognize, like, again, the mystic's journey is recognizing, like, nothing, that there is nothing that could ever give me this other than my own direct experience, again and again and again.
Exactly. That is a beautiful, beautiful way to explain that. The continuous emptying so the divine can fill you. And that everything really is, I mean, for the most part, at the foundation of it, if you look at the entirety, not what's been cherry picked by, patriarchal systems over time, it really is. It's all, like, when people are asking me, who am I praying to? God, spirit, source, Allah, I don't know, like, call it whatever you want. I kind of believe it's all the exact same thing, really and truly. We just have fit into these different group things because, again, trauma bonding, that feels safe. Okay, I need to fit in here in order to belong. I ditch myself at the door and I kind of absorb these teachings, these rules, and now I am validated and now I belong. Now I can survive, and we're living based out of a trauma response most of the time in that. So what I love about this is really you're giving people permission to think for themselves, to feel for themselves. I think figuring out what does truth resonate as in your body, what is your body's cues and signals, where something is like a nope, or something is a yep, or something is a, I'm not really sure. Let me go in here and know I can trust myself and I can unhook from anything and clear anything that doesn't feel safe or resonant for me once I'm there. Trusting that you're that divine sovereign being, coming back to that truth every single day, I think is so, so important. Are there any other pieces, Pilar, that you would say for people who are like, okay, maybe they've been in kind of the new age side, or, in the spirituality side, or they've been in the Christian side or whatever. And again, these are just all labels. It all comes back to the same thing. Go back, study the history of it. Is there anything, like any pieces of advice or anything you would leave them with in terms of, like, is it just going around and seeing kind of from all of it what feels good for you? Or, I mean, is that then extraction and cherry picking? And now we're kind of like doing the same thing. Like, how do you know if there's so many different ways and so many different tools and so many different modalities and things? How do you know?
Yeah.
Big question.
So a piece that doesn't necessarily relate to this, but I feel like I should bring up before we close, and then I'll get into that, is I think it's really important for people at this time to start putting on, like, the lens of understanding idol and pedestal and worship culture.
Amen.
Because that's a huge piece here. Mm-hmm. And understanding where they're enmeshed with people online. What you think is what I think. Now that you're feeling this, I'm feeling this. Now that you think this, I don't think this. That's enmeshment. That's, and oftentimes we're doing it with people we don't even know. Like, that all, like, we, in the Western world, worship culture is a program that we're enrolled into from a very, very young age. So, like, we've all had to deal with this. That will liberate you from ever allowing others to think for you again. And it's not that you can't receive the transmissions of others, but they're not, that's not you. That you didn't come to that. Like, you got to get to that on your own.
And that's the piece that, to me, like, when something resonates with me as truth that I hear from someone else, to me, it shifted from, oh, this, take it all. Okay, this must be the way, the truth, and the life, versus, oh, that just resonated in my body as like a remembering. Like, I've always known that, and God, right, chose to bring that through this person for me to wake up to it within myself. But it's not because that person told me. That was just the vessel of which that message was coming through.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, what was the question you had asked? It was, how do people, Like, what do you do once you know all this? And like, how do you know what to
Like
interact
where
with?
would you say, because of course it's like, God, we could be here forever talking about this. And if you guys want us to teach, something on this, if there's more here, if you want more support around this, let us know. We've got some things that we're thinking about and feeling into. But where do people go from here if they're kind of like blown wide open, or maybe they followed someone that did go from one side of the swing all the way over to the other, and they're feeling like that lost feeling of, now I don't belong anywhere, now I'm questioning my own beliefs, now I don't know, now I'm triggered, oh my God, I've just been abandoned. Do I play with this? Do I not? Is this safe? Is this not? Where do they go from here?
So the thing that's coming through first is when you reach this point, your spiritual journey has actually just begun. It just started. Like, congratulations, you are awake now. Because, and I apply this to myself too, the first 5 years, maybe even more, of my spiritual journey were complete bullshit. It was me and my ego. It was me preaching. It was me giving my power away. It was me getting hooked. Like, not complete BS. And we all go through that part of the path.
Amen.
When you get to the point where you're saying, I don't know what to believe, I don't know why I'm here, or what's going on with reality and existence, now you're there. Like, now you're there. Now it can really start. So from there, and this is what's so cool, people will often, I think, feel like, oh, to be spiritual, I need to know all the teachings. I need to go down all the paths. And it's like, they're all leading to the same place. So what would actually be a lot more beneficial is to just really tune in to the path your soul most desires to walk down. And like, for me, for a very long time, when I like really pulled out of like teachings and intaking and all these things, my path was being in nature alone, silent. And that's where I was led. And I was not reading spiritual books. I was not working with spiritual teachers. I was just, that was it. So I'm saying this because all you have to do is sit back in yourself, self with a capital S and a lowercase s, and ask, where do I go from here? Like, what is meant for me? What wants to show up? Because when you're in that place of like, I know nothing, I'm open, I'm empty, I am like ready to know, and also at the same time, I know that I could never truly know. Like, that's when the magic starts. That's when a teaching appears and you recognize it as just the teaching. It's just the transmission to bring you closer to something or to illuminate another aspect for you. So when people ask me this, I can never like prescribe, oh, you should study Hermetics. Oh, you should study Buddhism. It's like, it doesn't matter. But this is the issue I see right now with everything we're talking about. Very few people, or a lot less people than I think I would have liked to believe, have taken the time to understand what's going on through their own lens. Because when you go through that process, like, this is like not a small initiation. This is like a big time initiation when you start asking what is consciousness and why am I here in this human body? And like, what is God? Like, that initiation is when you gain the ability to start existing and living while holding the paradox of existence. Like, it's why when people get to this place, you hear about how there's the highest and most direct teachings, and it's the teaching of like, what is God, what is source, what is consciousness. It's like when you get to the top, those teachings are called the highest and direct teachings because they're the things that really like shake you and blow you open into what's going on. But they're also the highest and most direct teachings because it is so hard to interact with them in a mature and grounded way if you haven't done like prerequisite work. Yep. When you're empty and open and you don't know, to me, that's when I know the person is ready. Like, you're ready to receive the direct transmission of what all this is.
God, I love this so much because this is, I mean, literally, I wrote that at the top of my page before I had even asked you that question. And this is what I'm teaching in one of my programs right now of like helping people wake up to what's going on in the world right now, not necessarily religion, but and people always ask me, well, how do I know? And da, 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 and, da, da, da. And the guys on that podcast, how do you know you're right? I said, I don't. Like, I don't. I know who I am. I know my own connection. I know the messages that I receive. I know what resonates in my own body. I've done that whole, like you're saying, this constant, this constant emptying out, and always just being open to what's coming through my own channels that I can see clearly. And I know what is true and I know what's not. I'm not here to tell you here's what's true in like an objective sense. I personally believe, who the hell gave anyone the authority to do that? No one actually has the authority to be like, this is the way. And to me, that's one of my biggest red flags with mentors now. If they don't leave room for my own experience, my own communication, my own channels, my own sovereignty, that's the second I know, nope, get the F out of here. Like, this is not safe, because I'm like, that's distorted. That isn't real. Like, we all are getting our own information. We all have the same channels. I don't care if you call yourself a psychic, if you call yourself a clairsentient, or whatever the hell these different labels are. We all have channels and access to the divine. It's within you. It's outside of you. It's everywhere. It's all around us. We're all connected to it. You just have to become comfortable, like you're saying, in that stillness, in the unknown, allowing yourself to be in the question of, fuck, I'm curious. I don't really know. This is kind of scary because I've always wanted to know my whole life, but I'm going to, instead of force my way through here and try to find somewhere that I can stick to, I'm going to let myself surrender in the unknown, learn to create safety here, and trust that the answers and the guidance and the pieces will come through as I'm open, as I have space, as I'm ready to receive it. If I would have received what I'm receiving now a decade ago, I couldn't even hold it. I didn't have the capacity to hold it. So it's all, you have to, again, surrender to that bigger picture of, I'm getting what I'm ready for. So how can I continue to prepare myself, my body, my mind, my spirit, to hold this and be open to this? Because your guides, right, or whoever you want to believe the divine is, and this higher power, they've got your best interest in mind. They're not just going to blow you wide open with all this shit because you're going to go, again, pendulum swing on out of here to go find safety. You have to prepare yourself. And that's what I'm telling people, even in regards to what's going on in our world right now. Shit's going to get worse before it gets better. Prepare yourself. You have the awareness. Do the work to prepare your mind, body, and spirit to be able to navigate this. Otherwise, you're just going to feel, I mean, unfortunately, people are kind of going crazy and they're like in a trauma response, and you can't actually be productive from that space. So when, we say we need you well, you have to take care of yourself. You have to be preparing yourself to hold what it is you're asking for. And you have to be willing to literally be okay in the wilderness, just kind of wandering, being like, wow, I want to cling to something, but I just have to keep coming back to this moment.
Yep. Yeah. You're beautiful. You're touching on like the final piece I want to share.
Yeah.
And that's that this is obviously a much, much larger conversation to unpack what I'm about to say, but it's that when you are in this place of saying, well, how do I know? How do I know that's God? How do I pray? How do I connect to this? How can I know that this is what it is? You're still in mind. You're still in Maya matrix when you're still trying to figure out the math equation to God. And one of my favorite quotes is, I worship the unknown through the known. Please forgive me. Because the most difficult thing, I think, for the Westerner to wrap their mind around is that you can't know the unknown. You can't ever know the mystery. You can't ever comprehend it with mind. You can never be the knower. You can have a direct experience. You can be a living experience, and you can like have that. But even those direct experiences, you're not even coming close to experiencing the unknown or knowing the unknown. And this is where when you start to recognize that, you see how so many aspects of your existence have just been trying to know and avoiding the mystery and avoiding the unknown and avoiding the void, because so much of the Western world and so much of the teachings and programs that we've been implanted with are telling us, like, you need to know, and you need to hold on to linear structures and time and space and cause and effect. And these are all part of relative reality. These have nothing to do with the absolute. They're all fiction. Mm-hmm. And this is where you start to see how when you tap into this, you can't bring the same level of consciousness that was trying to grasp on to Jesus as the answer to this.
God. This is so, I mean, literally, we need to have like a whole episode on just this, because I literally wrote a post about this a week or two ago. This is so funny. This came through for me too, around, I don't even think that we have the capacity to fathom what God and what consciousness is in this 3D realm. We don't. So like, why are we trying so hard to like get the perfect right answer and figure out, you know, the A plus B equals C in this whole math equation? We literally, it's impossible. It's an ever unfolding, ever expanding journey of coming deeper and deeper and deeper into yourself and your own connection with it. And we literally can't hold the vastness of it. There's no way. It's too immense.
No, it's, if we could, we would all be terribly bored. There would be no joy in remembering. There would be no joy in forgetting and remembering, or touching. There would be no joy in touching in and having those direct experiences. It would take away the mystery, which ultimately like takes away all of why our souls actually wanted to be here anyway.
Yep. Damn. Mic drop. Literally, I'm like, yes, this is so good. And it's so funny because, you know, the certain aspects of me want to be like, Pilar, what are your thoughts on the afterlife? What goes on when we die? And all these things. But then that's me seeking, you know, again, what's right. And versus, yes, I can find those conversations fascinating. I'm not going to have it here because I want you guys to discover that for yourself. Have those conversations amongst yourselves. Maybe we'll have that in the future. But really, again, check in with yourself. What do I feel like happens in the afterlife? Because especially with that, I don't know what the objective truth is there. None of us are going to know until we die. And then, sorry, we're not on this earth anymore. We can't, you know, we can communicate it. We can channel it. It's the same reason like all of these psychics and channels and healers and teachers, they're all channeling the, you know, energy report for the month, and they're all different. And I'm, you know, you're trying to be like, wait a second, what? Because we're all connected to God in a different way. We're all having different messages come through that we need, that our audience needs, that maybe our friend, like whatever, it might be coming through us for whatever reason. But who's to say who's right and who's wrong? That's why, like, I can't do the whole hierarchy. I can't do the whole I'm right, you're wrong. You know, this is the only way. That to me, my whole body's like, nope, I've been there. That doesn't feel good. Like, that is not real. I know better than that. And I can snap myself out of it and move forward and trust that the teachings, the leaders, the teachers that I'm meant to connect with will reveal themselves to me. They always do. It's not about, can I go Google to try to find this perfect person? It's about opening myself up alone and really asking for the guidance, asking for divine assistance, asking for, you know, whatever my next step is, I'm ready for it. And then to be willing to keep my eyes and my heart open to what comes through. And then again, checking back in with your own discernment.
Yep. Yeah. I'm not going to go into all of this.
She whips her ponytail back. That was so sassy.
I do want to say, when I've, like, in regards to sort of what you were alluding to, the way that I have experienced the highest and most direct teaching or understanding of what's going on, to me, the universe is still part of the play of consciousness. It's still part of the reflection. Dying, reincarnating, soul's mission, soul's gifts, soul families.
Just a shit show all of a sudden.
And again, this is like, this could never be unpacked right now, but that's still, to me, that's still part of the play that we chose to experience. It's not the absolute, it's the absolute projecting itself and reflecting through a dimension that we can't see. And this is why I was talking about, when you're empty and you're ready to know, you can get to a place where you're finally ready to receive the paradox of what you are and what you're doing here.
When's your book going to be out?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I literally could listen to you talk all day. I'm like so enthralled of just by like everything you're saying. I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. I don't know how I got to be surrounded by such badass people that literally when they speak, it feels like you're speaking like butter. And it's like, I just am like in this like melted butter, like swimming around. It's like this just deliciousness. And I'm like, oh my God, bathe me in this, please. It's just so good. I'm so here for it.
Because you're there. Because that's you too.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's why you're surrounded by it.
But I had my friend Amanda on a couple weeks ago too. And I literally was like, I could listen to you talk all day. And then I'm like, when's your book coming out? I just want to listen to you guys all the time. You guys are so brilliant and so wise. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing this with us. Like, I'm mind blown. I have a whole page of notes. I can't wait to re-listen to it, even just for myself, and continuing to like lift those veils and continue to come deeper and deeper and deeper into myself. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm really glad we did this. And I feel like the perspectives you shared sort of just perfectly braided. Like, I feel like we just perfectly sort of braided two different perspectives to create like a whole bundle.
We tend to do that. We do tend to do that. I'm so here for it.
Yeah.
So where do people go, Pilar, to connect with you from here?
Oh, let's see. My website, Instagram, my email list. It's all Pilar Lesko. PilarLesko.com, Pilar Lesko on Instagram. My email list is my favorite place. Everything else is who knows. Like, who knows when you're going to hear from me? Who knows how I'm going to use it? But
so true.
Yeah, I'm like I'm tending like a really big project right now, and I'm like super, super excited about that. I'm also, I don't know when this will release, but my Projector Magic course, Reimagined, that's open right now. It closes on the 16th. But all of this can be found on my website, email list, Instagram, whatever.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Always love having you here. It's always such a pleasure, and I can't wait for another conversation around this because, again, I feel like we barely wet their palates, and we need more.
Yeah, agreed.
We'll have more of these conversations. Guys, thank you so much for being here today, for hanging out with us, for being willing to brave challenging conversation things that challenge what you believe to be true and identities that you hold so near and dear to your heart can be really difficult, and it takes a courageous person. So thank you all for being here and being willing to sit with us and have these really big questions and ideas, brought to your awareness and brought to the forefront. And let us know how this resonates. Let us know how this hits home. Let us know on Instagram, on our websites, wherever. We both, kind of just flow through life. People are always like, when is your next program? I'm like, I don't know. I'll keep you posted. Like when will you run this again? I don't know. I don't plan things.
The same thing I was talking about. Like,
yeah,
trying to know the unknown. Like
100%. And like, I tried to control that for so long because I am very conditioned in that way, as most of us are. And especially a lot of business coaches will teach you need to be really conditioned in that way. And Pilar and I don't operate that way, and she liberates me deeper in that just through being her friend and watching her just completely surrender to things. So we're like on Instagram. We launch programs. We run things. We work with people one-on-one. You can let us know if you want to work with us. But other than that, we're kind of just living life and being fully in the experience. And we hope that gives you permission and liberates you to do the exact same thing, because you get to have whatever you want and you get to do it your way. So we'll see you guys next time. We love you, and we'll maybe see you on the gram. Bye.